It looked like somebody was bent over and had their head in the window of the deer blind. It either heard me or smelt me, and he pulled his head out of the tent and stood straight up, and that shocked me. They don't make people that big.
The way it moved, almost as if it was gliding across the beach. I've never seen anything move like that in my life. They were screaming at each other in gibberish. It sounded like a language, and they were chuntering away back and forwards, back and forwards, back and forwards. I know what a bear looks like, and there is no way on this planet that what I saw were bears.
What are you reporting?
Jesus Christ, you better...
Sir?
Gio!
Hello?
Get somebody out here.
What's going on now, sir?
That son of a bitch is about 6'9", I don't know.
Do you see him now, sir?
Yes, I'm looking right at him.
Uh-oh.
This is Susie from Southern California. Happy Valentine's Day and happy birthday to me. You are listening to my favorite show, Sasquatch Chronicles.
Welcome to the show, everyone. Thanks for being here tonight. Got a great show planned for you. We're going to be chatting with Ken. And Ken had an encounter in 1962 in Montana while hunting. And this is way before the Patterson-Gimlin film. And when Ken and I were talking, Ken said, I didn't know what it was. I thought it was a man. I just thought it was really weird. He was carrying a deer and he was running at full speed across this valley. And we were watching him up above on a ridge. And I was just shocked how fast he was moving. And I was 18 at the time, didn't really know what I'd run into. So we'll be chatting with Ken tonight. We'll also be chatting with Damien Nott. And most of you might remember him from episode 723, where we talked about the strange light phenomenon. And Damien's from Australia, and he has, I'm telling you, this guy has a ton of evidence to back up what he's saying. And I was amazed I've watched his stuff on Amazon, I've watched his stuff on YouTube, and I was blown away by the amount of evidence that he has. One thing we didn't talk about on the last show that I had him on, and I wasn't sure if he really wanted to go into it or not, but he's actually been hurt by the lights. He's been physically hurt by the lights, and, over the last short period of time, he's been fighting radiation poisoning. He has physical effects of this encounter, and he'll be going into that tonight. We talk about the lights a lot regarding Sasquatch or any weird cryptids. There seems to be these weird balls of light that show up, and not only in cryptid encounters, but also in people out hiking or hunting. They'll be out in the woods and they'll see these weird balls of light flying around. So Damien's encounter, what happened to him, is definitely a warning to people who approach the lights, and he'll be talking about that tonight. If you've had an encounter and you'd like to be on the show, shoot me an email. My email address is wes@sasquatchchronicles.com, and if you get a chance, check out sasquatchchronicles.com. You can become a member and get additional shows. Let's jump into it tonight. I want to welcome Ken to the show. Ken, thanks for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I appreciate you being here, Ken. And I know you were actually out hunting when... but if you would take us back, I know that it happened in 1962 in Montana. Take us back to that moment. Kind of tell us what you saw, what you experienced that day.
Okay. Well, I was 18 at the time,
And they knew this place in the Beartooth Mountain Range where there was a big cliff. And I'd never been there before, so I don't know exactly where it was. But we went up there, and we got out of the Jeep, and we're walking towards the cliff. And they decided to go down these trees to the right that go down into the valley. And they told me to go out on this cliff. And so I got up to the cliff, and I took my hat off, and I got down on my stomach and literally crawled to the edge of this cliff. And the wind was in my face. I thought, boy, this is perfect because I can see forever. And I crawled out of there real slow, and I lifted up my head real slow, and I was looking down through this valley. And I saw a movement way off to my left, down in the very bottom of this valley. And I saw something coming up the very bottom of the valley, moving pretty fast. And so I got my gun scope up and my gun, and I started watching this thing through the scope. And it was moving pretty good, and it had a hold of a deer in its right hand. And it was flopping that deer around like it was a rag doll. I mean, it was like it wasn't even there. And I kept watching this thing through the scope, and I could see him looking at me. And I remember I was very shocked that how he knew I was there. And as he was running up the valley, he kept looking at me back and forth to where he was running. And he was moving pretty fast through some pretty rough terrain. You know, there's big rocks and stuff in there. But it seemed like he was watching me more than where he was running. And so I was shocked. I'd never heard of Bigfoot at the time. I was just an 18-year-old kid. And I can remember every detail. I mean, it's like it was yesterday. And he kept coming up there, and I'm watching him the whole time, and he keeps looking at me. And finally, he gets right down below me, and then he takes off to the other side of the valley. It's a very steep mountain and very big. And he just took off up that mountain and never slowed down a bit. He got about halfway up, and there was about a 4-foot ledge. And he came to that ledge, and that never slowed him down at all. He threw that deer up ahead of him and jumped on that ledge at the same time and kept running up, never slowed down one single bit, and went completely out of sight. And the thing that amazes me is how powerful he was and how agile he was. And I, of course, was in shock of watching all this. I thought it was some guy that got caught poaching a deer or something, because I could tell he was afraid of me. I thought he was afraid because I was a game warden or something that caught him poaching a deer. I think the only way he could see me was he had a sixth sense. He knew I was there before he could even see me. And over the years, I've thought about that a lot. And that's the only way he could have seen me, because it was so far away, and I wasn't exactly skyline, but there was trees around me on both sides. So I've always had that thought. He knew I was there. And the only reason I caught him in the act, the only reason I caught him in that position was because he was busy killing a deer. And maybe he got distracted from his sixth sense or something like that. And I just happened up on him, and he looked like, oh no, I got caught, I'm getting out of here. He took his deer with him, and away he went. And then when we got back to the Jeep, I told those guys I was with what I saw, and they told me I was crazy. So, okay. I've been listening to that for 59 years, so no big deal there.
Yeah, I hear you. It's one amazing sight, though, you saw, Ken. I mean, it's running at full speed with a deer in its hand, and full as well as I do. That's why you quarter a deer out, because they're too big to pick up and walk off with. But for you seeing this thing running full speed with a deer in its hand, what an amazing account.
Oh, it was like it was nothing, It was just literally like a rag doll. And then mule deer are pretty big animals, And I remember when we got up there, I looked down in that valley, and I thought, boy, if I shoot a deer down there, I don't know how we're going to ever get it out, because there's some big mountains. But he didn't have a problem getting his out. He was moving right along.
Yeah, was there anything that kind of stood out to you, Ken? I mean, you're looking at this thing, and it's obviously, I think in 1962, my first thought would be, oh, it's a man. But, when you're watching him run with this deer and go up a steep mountain and do these things that are almost impossible to do, When you were looking at it, was there anything that stood out to you when you were looking at it with or without the scope? Was there anything that stood out to you?
Well, not any more than what I've already told you. I thought it was. Then I thought, well, maybe when I first saw it, I thought it was a rancher. But then I realized, there's no ranchers down there. There's no cattle in that area. So I've gone over this in my mind a million times, and it's still the same story. I saw what I saw, and the power and the agility of this thing was just remarkable. He went up the side of that mountain. It would have taken me, if I could do it, maybe 7 hours. I don't know. But he didn't slow down a bit. He was running at the same speed as when he was running when I first saw him. I mean, he was gone.
Yeah, let me ask you, when you were watching this thing and it was going up and it was doing all these things, what was kind of going through your mind? I know you immediately thought rancher, but what was kind of going through your mind when you saw this thing do what it did?
Well, just shock. I didn't know. I just was never heard of Bigfoot before, so I thought, what in the world is that? I never thought it was of course, it's not a bear. I've hunted bear. I know what a bear looks like. I lived in Yellowstone Park with the bears for 1 year. And we had a pack of dogs where we hunted coons and bobcats all the time. So I'm used to being in the mountains, and I'm used to being around wild animals a lot. And that one was just a mystery. It was totally unexplainable. It's a funny thing. This happened 59 years ago, and over that period of time, I tell people, hey, I had a couple of Sasquatch encounters. And in that 59 years, telling that I had those encounters, not one single time has anybody says, wow, I want to hear about it. Tell me the story. It's really a strange thing because some people are almost afraid of it, afraid of the truth or the story, or maybe they think I'm crazy, or both. But I've had people tell me, I had one friend of mine tell me, he says, well, I believe you. And so that was reassuring, but most of the time it's just a shut off. My grandkids believe me, I think. They like me to tell them that story. But most of the people, it's just turn off and scared. It scares them more than people that get close up to Sasquatch, I think. It's a mystery.
Yeah, it is. It definitely is a mystery. I'm kind of curious, Ken, at the moment I realize you're looking through the scope, and you probably realized then this isn't a man. I mean, men don't pick up deers and do full sprints across the valley, then up the side of a mountain. And so I know that at that moment you realized it wasn't a man, even though that's probably where your mind wants to go. But was there an aha moment? I mean, was there a moment where you thought, this is Sasquatch, this is what I saw that day? Was it when you saw the Patterson-Gimlin film?
Yeah, no, it was a little before the Patterson-Gimlin film came out. I moved to Minnesota for a while to go to school, and I was watching TV, and they were talking about this Bigfoot. And I was sitting there watching this program, and all of a sudden I just got up and screamed. I said, "That's it! That's exactly what I saw! I finally got the answer to what was going on." And some people were in the other room, and they thought I was insane yelling like that. But I was very happy to see that information. I don't think the people in the other room still believed it, but I believed it, and I knew exactly what I saw. That really helped out a lot, and it's really is discouraging when you see something like this 59 years ago, and then nobody wants to hear you talk about it. Something so extraordinary, and they just ignore you. It's like I want to slap them in the face. I'm telling you the truth. But over the years, I've thought about if I ever see another one, about whether I would shoot it or not, and sometimes I come to the conclusion, no, I don't want to shoot it. But then it would be kind of neat to shoot one to show the world that they're there, to prove it, to all these people that have ridiculed you and made fun of you. I'm sure talk behind your back and behind my back, and it would be kind of fun to say, okay, here you go.
Yeah, I hear you.
I live in an area right now where there's not very much Sasquatch activity. There's south of town here, there's a big area that opens up what we call a slough. We have my wife and I have an airboat, and we go back in there fishing and hunting and shooting hogs, and there's Sasquatch everywhere. I don't know why they wouldn't be there. So I always carry plaster of Paris with me in case I ever see a print. But boy, that'd be a tough place to find a print out there. But it would be interesting to find something out there. Now, one of the hunters down here, he's a guide. I heard that he was out there one night and saw something. He wouldn't talk about it. He saw something that just scared the hell out of him, I guess. So I went up to him one night and I says, hey, did you ever see anything out in the slough that was real scary? And he got all upset. He says, no, I didn't see anything. Turned around and walked off. It was more than obvious that he was lying. But he will not talk about whatever he saw out there. And I'd like to find out. I'm gonna see him again one of these days and try to pin him down.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, tell them what you saw. A lot of times if you tell people, hey, I saw this, and a lot of times they'll open up and say, okay, well, I saw this too. I would definitely give it another shot. I want to ask you, I realize you're on a ridge on a mountain looking down into a valley and you're seeing this thing. Was it one solid color or was there hair that you remember?
It was so far away, it just looked dark to me. And I couldn't distinguish anything other than the only thing I can distinguish is how he was looking at me, which just to this day amazes me that he knew I was there. And he looked totally frightened. I mean, it was like he couldn't get out of there fast enough. And I don't know, maybe he knew I had a gun and I was a pretty good shot. So maybe he made the right decision. But I didn't even think about shooting him. I thought it was a man. I didn't have anything else to go by.
Yeah, I think if I put myself in your shoes, Ken, I would have thought a man too, especially in 1962. But, and then seeing what it did, I mean, a full sprint across a valley with a deer in its hand and then up the side of a mountain, people don't move that way. And as well as I do, when you go hunting, you don't shoot a deer, pick it up and walk off with it. It doesn't work that way. They're too big. That's why you got to quarter them out.
When you hunt in Montana, you got to have a couple of buddies and you drag it out and hopefully it's not downhill, and hopefully you don't have to drag it uphill because they're big animals. I was kind of hoping we wouldn't see a deer down there because I didn't want to have to climb down there and try to drag it out. It would have taken all three of us for sure, hours to get it out of there.
Yeah, no doubt.
You clean the thing and drag it out or quarter it or something would have taken a long time. But another thing I was thinking about, I got a friend of mine that hunts all over. He hunts a lot in Alaska and does the bush plane thing and all that. I've never done any of that. Well, maybe once. But anyway, he came to my shop the other day and I says, hey, do you ever, you get a lot of hunting time in. Do you ever see a Sasquatch? And he kind of looked at me funny and he says, no, I've never seen a Sasquatch. I says, oh, really? I says, well, let me tell you my story. So I told him my story. And then he says, well, there was this one time up in Alaska, they were in a bush plane and they looked down in this clearing and saw one. And the pilot didn't turn around and go back or anything. He just saw this thing walking across this clearing. And they told him when they landed, yeah, that was a Sasquatch. And I says, well, so you have seen a Sasquatch? And he says, yeah, I just didn't want to admit it. I thought that was kind of funny. Yeah, so he's a hunter, and it just kind of tells the story that people don't like to talk about it.
Yeah, they really don't. I think a lot of people want to avoid it. They'll pass it off as some weird bear they saw or some weird hunter they saw. Most people don't want to address it. What do you think that they are? What's your opinion as far as what you think Sasquatch is?
Well, over the years, I've had a lot of theories and studying on the thing. If you want me to go into talking about this, I sure will.
Sure.
I've done the studying on the Nephilim in Genesis And I don't think they're Nephilim. But I do think the studying in the Bible, the 200 fallen angels, there's evidence that they were messing around with DNA and genealogy, or whatever they call it, studying, mixing genes. If you look at the Egyptian hieroglyphics, they show pictures of like a man with an eagle head, or a horse with a human shoulders on it, or human head, and all these weird shapes. And I believe that goes back to fallen angels messing around with this DNA. And nowadays they have this other thing going on, eugenics, I think it is. And they're messing around with the same thing that these angels messed around with. And they're trying to create a human being that can see in the dark. And all these, and make them super strong. And when you look at what they're studying, or what they're trying to produce, it's exactly the same thing as Sasquatch. So it makes me wonder if they've been around that long. You know, I don't have any real evidence of this, but it's just a wild theory because nobody else seems to have anything else going on. But those angels had extraordinary technology. They knew it. I read a book a couple of years ago called Dead Man's Secrets. And this book goes back to ancient technologies. And the ancient things that they've found that these people had back in those days, thousands of years ago, is extraordinary. They've discovered things in caves. They've discovered ancient maps that are more accurate than the ones we have now of Antarctica and up along the Alaska coast. They found a map that was more accurate than the one we had. So even the United States Navy changed their maps to match these ancient ones. It's a really interesting book. The problem is that it's so well documented. You get tired of reading all the proof of their stories. But anyway, that's the theory that I have.
Yeah, it's fascinating. What was the name of the book?
Dead Men's Secrets. And in your position, I would recommend reading that book. You know, they used to move these 100-ton stones around, and they don't have a clue how they did it anymore. And they'd move them like 400 or 500 miles to build some kind of a structure somewhere, and they did it with ease, evidently.
Yeah, I've definitely been looking into that. I'll have to check that book out, Ken.
In your position, I'd highly recommend it. And also the book of Enoch. Enoch is not in the Bible, but Enoch is mentioned in the Bible. He was Noah's great-grandfather, I think. Enoch has a lot of things in there about the Nephilim and the fallen angels and stuff like that.
Yeah, I love the Book of Enoch. I definitely have read it many times. But you know, it's fascinating. What you're saying is you don't think that they're the Nephilim, but it's some form of abomination.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yeah, that's just, you know, I really spent a lot of time studying this stuff. Hell, I had 59 years to do it, and I'm still going it. And your YouTube thing has helped me more than anything. That's a great place, man. You get some people on there that know what they're talking about.
I appreciate it.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, no, thank you. And I got to thank you, Ken, for coming on. Thank you for taking the time. It's a fascinating account. You know, it's I think a lot of hunters can relate to your encounter. I've talked to many people who, especially hunters, they'll go, well, I thought it was a guy in a ghillie suit. It was the weirdest ghillie suit I've ever seen, but it was a guy in a ghillie suit.
They didn't even have ghillie suits back in those days.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Now, I had another encounter, if you have time to listen to it.
Yeah, absolutely.
We were coon hunting down in the valleys there in the Montana area, Billings area. And we went hunting all the time. Well, not all the time, but two times a week at least, with my friend that had a couple of good dogs. Like every coon hunter, they have a good dog, you know. And we went down there hunting all the time at night, carried big flashlights and one little one to walk with. And we got the dogs started, and they took off after a coon. We could hear them barking in the background. And we walked into this clearing kind of a circular clearing. We were walking through the middle of it. And I never did see a Sasquatch, but here's what happened. I was about halfway through that clearing, and I stopped right in the middle of it, and I drew out my pistol, and I put my big flashlight on, and I was pointing my pistol and my flashlight into the trees. And this just came on me, the fear, just all of a sudden. And I'm going back and forth with my flashlight shining to the left and to the right, of me. And I'm standing there for quite a while, and I'm doing this. And I look at my friend, and he's doing the exact same thing on the other side. And we're just standing there shining our lights into the trees with our guns out. And I said, "What's going on?" He says, "I don't know, but there's something going on." And so we're standing there. We stood there for a little while longer. And then the dogs came running back. Coon hunters, they have a hard time getting their dogs back. These two dogs came running back at a dead run, and they ran right up to us, and they had their tails between their legs, and they were shaking, and they leaned up against us, and they wouldn't go anywhere. And you can't get coon dogs. They don't do that sort of thing.
Yeah, they don't.
So we stood there for a little while longer, and we looking at the dogs and looking at the trees, and my friend says, "Hell, we might as well go home." I says, "Yeah, I didn't have a problem with that. Let's go." And so we hooked up the dogs and walked back to the truck, and away we went. But that was just an unexplained experience that I didn't put together until very recently. I knew we were scared, but now I know it was probably a Sasquatch in there. I didn't smell anything. I didn't see any eye shine. I didn't hear anything. But boy, we sure felt fear.
Yeah, it's terrifying, especially when you can't see it.
Yeah. And at that age, we were, we hunted and fished all the time. We had no fear. I mean, we were bulletproof. If a coon went down in a cave or a hole or something, I went in after it, I loved the danger of the thing when we get going at it, but that sure did wake us up. It was an extraordinary experiment, another one, and I'm still looking for one. I go out in my airboat, and I got my gun, and I got my plaster of Paris, and I'd still like to see another one from a distance.
Yeah, I was going to ask you that, Ken. Would you want to see another one, especially after your encounter with that thing running across the valley, then going up the side of the mountain, holding a deer the whole time, and then your second encounter, that fear, and people may say, well, it's not an encounter, but that fear of, you hear a lot of people where they just stop dead in their tracks and they're terrified. And then the reaction of coon dogs, because you're right, coon dogs don't act like that. They're fearless. But after all of that, you'd want to see another one again, huh?
Yeah, I do want to see one. And I would like, because when I go out in my airboat, I'm looking left and right. I'm looking left and right, looking for one. The chances of seeing one are probably 1,000,000 to 1. But I hope that I do see one. And I hope my wife is with me when I do. And, I don't know if I'd shoot it or not. I just don't know. If they came close to me and I felt endangered, I wouldn't have a problem shooting it then. I mean, I'd do that. But
yeah, no doubt.
Seeing it off in the distance, I don't know.
Yeah, I hear you, Ken. 1,000,000 to 1, but be careful what you wish for, because you might just get it. And, that first encounter of it, carrying a deer, doing a full sprint across the valley, then up the side of a mountain, after almost 60 years, that would stay with me too as well. And I can't thank you enough for coming on and taking the time to share what happened to you.
Well, I tell you what, I appreciate telling it to you, because I've lived with this for 59 years, and nobody will hardly listen to me, So you got some people out there, I think, will listen. And I think they'll respect the story.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. Thank you again, Ken.
Yeah. Hey, thank you, Wes. I appreciate it.
Happy birthday to Susie, by the way. I should have said that in the intro. Happy birthday, Susie. Next up on the show, I want to welcome Damien Nott. Damien, welcome back to the show, man. Thanks so much for being here.
Thanks for having me back, Wes.
Yeah, Damien, I really appreciate you coming back on the show. And for the audience, definitely check out episode 723, Strange Light Phenomenon, with Damien. And, Damien, where we talked about a lot of your encounters. And I've watched all your stuff on Amazon Prime, Netflix. I've gone through all your YouTube videos, and I've been really impressed with the amount of evidence you've collected over the years. And I still don't understand why this is happening to you, but it fascinates me. One of the things with these strange balls of light, I know you call them UFOs, which technically they are, in a lot of weird cryptid encounters, like Sasquatch being on the property, or people run into what's called the dogman or yowies in Australia. A lot of times they'll talk about these weird balls of light flying around. And I always warn people, don't follow the lights. I've seen them. I don't know what they are. And even people who don't have cryptids on their property, I've talked to hunters and hikers just out in the woods, and they come across these weird balls of light flying around, and no one really seems to know what they are. And I didn't really want to go into this on the first show because I wasn't sure if you wanted to talk about it or not. But knowing that you're willing to talk about it, you were actually injured by the lights.
Yeah, I've had an incident, I could say. It wasn't very pleasant. It's pretty much taken me quite a few months to get over it, and I've still got some issues. But I mean, getting a lot healthier now, though. It was basically a ball of light, and a purple ball of light. And it's quite rare because you never see purple ones. I've seen one before in my life before this one. But yeah, it was highly strange. I was just working on the computer in my office, and basically I had my dog with me, and I just got up and to go outside, get a bit of fresh air, and it was about 2 a.m. in the morning, about 2:15, and I just went out the front with my dog, and as soon as I got to the door, I looked to the right, and there's this thing just popped up above my tree, about maybe 17, 18 feet roughly away from me, and just above this small tree. It just sort of hovered there, bobbed up and down a little bit, and then it gave off this bright white light, and I could feel it. I could feel like a warmth, like a strange tingly warmth. It wasn't like a normal, if you go to the beach and get sunburnt or something like that. This was a really strange warmth. And anyway, I covered my eyes with my arm and my jacket that I was wearing at the time, and then this thing just disappeared and it was gone. Whether it blinked out or flew up or whatever, I wasn't too sure. My eyes were starting to sting a little bit at the time, so basically I just went inside, went back to sleep. I went to sleep and woke up the following morning, and my partner at the time, she said, look at yourself. What's wrong? Are you okay? And I was like, well, what do you mean? And I sat up, and sure enough, I just felt like I had the biggest hangover that you could ever imagine, and I just felt really sort of off. And I went and looked at myself in the mirror, and I was white as a ghost, except for burn marks, not burn marks, but red patches all over my face. And my bottom eye lashes were burnt right down to the skin. And not only that, the worst part was, I look like hell, I was dragged through hell sort of thing, but the worst part was over the next few days, my left arm, which I used to cover my face with from this light, started getting red. It wasn't sore or anything. It just started getting redder and redder over a period of, 4 or 5 days. Then it started to blister up, these really strange green-looking blisters, greeny yellow-looking blisters all over my arm, and it got really bad for about 2 weeks, and then the blisters popped. We went to specialists, and then because it was so deep, this burn or whatever it was. And the strange thing about it was that it actually burnt me through my jacket. I was wearing a thick jacket at the time because it was cold. It was in winter, and it somehow burnt my arm through my jacket, right where I was covering my face. And not only that, it didn't affect the jacket in any way. So it didn't burn the jacket on the outside, but somehow burnt through the jacket, almost like a microwave kind of would do, like microwave radiation, who knows, whatever. But yeah, this thing, we went to specialists for about 7 months, getting all different types of diagnoses. After it, I found out that I had a rare bone disease called hypophosphatemic osteomalacia, and then they changed that and said it was something else, and then they said no, it's osteoporosis, and then they said no, it's HO, and it was just, we ended up going to professors and everything. Yeah, it was just insane, and nobody could link. The doctors seemed to think that whatever happened to my arm was linked to seizures that started, within a few days as well. So not only did I see this UFO or this ball of light, it's only a small thing too, but not only did I see that, I also got the burn on my arm, burnt face, and then I started having seizures a few days later when the blisters started to appear on my arm, and I fell over in the kitchen during one of the seizures, broke my back into 3 places, and right in front of my ex and her father. And then, I woke up with paramedics above me, and they took me to the hospital, and that was it. So then I found out, I had a broken back and all these other health issues. And then they did a bone density scan. They found out that my bones were almost completely, not disintegrated, but over a period of time, they seem to think that this was a long-standing problem that I've had. So they don't seem to think that it was caused by an individual event, possibly a build-up of, events, or a build-up of exposure to something. And one of the main things that causes HO, hypophosphatemic osteomalacia, is radiation. So when I found that out, you kind of put 2 and 2 together. You see a ball of light. You know that, from my own experience and from what I've read and seen, you don't touch these balls of light because, you will get sick or you will die. I've heard cases of people, these balls coming up to people, and then when the people go out to try and touch it, out of curiosity, they hear a voice in their head saying, don't touch, or it'll end up bad for you, or don't touch, So it's really strange. But I ended up coming up to the country after that, and to sort of, rest and recover a little bit. I lost heaps of weight. And then, so I've been on multiple treatments and all that sort of stuff. I seem to be getting a lot better now than what I was. So, but for a while it was touch and go. My doctor actually said that I was his sickest patient, which was great to hear. But, at the age of 41 sort of thing, it's pretty insane. So, that's pretty much what happened. And I haven't seen that UFO since, and I don't want to ever see it again. So, and my dog started having seizures too, and we eventually had to put him down as well. So it was pretty insane time in my life.
It's very insane, man. Very insane, especially to go through that. I've had eyewitnesses on the show who've come across these balls of light. I remember one in particular was a farmer, and he was walking up to this ball of light, and it was in the middle of the day. He didn't know what it was. And he started walking up to it, and he got about 3 to 5 feet away from it, and he was going to touch it is what he was going to do. And he blacked out. And that's the last thing he remembers for about 2 days. And he was found in the field. And to this day, he didn't know what it was. He said it was this weird ball of light. Let me ask you, though, going back to what you saw with the purple light, how big was the light? And you talk about a light coming off of it. Was it shining a light towards you?
At the time, I couldn't tell. First of all, it was about the size, a little bit bigger than a basketball, so it was not big at all. But the light that I saw come from it, it seemed to have when I was looking at it for a few seconds before it lit up, I'll use the term lit up because I can't really describe it any other way. The center of this ball, this purple ball, was like a white, and the white was radiating to the outside peripheral, which was purple. So it was like the white was turning into purple, and it kept on going around and around and around. And it was a bizarre UFO. And normally I don't get them come up close to me like that. I think I've only had, that was the 5th one in my life that I've had come up close since I was 9. But it's hard to say with the whole thing, whether it was that UFO that had made me sick and had affected my bones, or whether it was a build-up of previous exposures to UFOs. I think I mentioned in the last podcast, Mike Williams is an author and a Fortean investigator here in Australia, and he's into, you know, all the different phenomena and whatnot. He's been investigating my case for 8 years himself, and he was witness to a UFO flying into the ground, and this is like a cylinder of light, brilliant light, white light, and it was about maybe 7 feet long, maybe a bit shorter, maybe a bit longer. It's hard to tell. It travelled into the ground over my left arm, probably about 2 inches off my arm, down the same arm that was burnt years later, mind you. But yeah, and it just melted into the ground and it was gone. No sound, no noise, no wind, no anything. And right in front of us, you know, and literally we both jumped 10 feet. So I've had them come close to me during my life, so it's hard to work out, and it's even harder to tell a professor or a specialist, you know, when they say, oh, what work do you do? What have you been exposed to? Or whatever the case is. It's hard to say that, you know, I film UFOs and I've been exposed to a ball of light that's made me really sick. They'll think you're crazy, you know, and so it's, it's kind of touch and go with doctors. You can't really mention UFOs still to this day. I mean, I can with my GP. We have jokes about them and, you know, and talk about them. And I saw a UFO with him as well. So now he believes in them. So it's seeing is believing at the end of the day, I guess, right? So, yeah.
Well, and that's the point I want to talk to you about. I mean, what an emotional roller coaster for you, Damien, to be on. You know, I think if I was, you know, I won't talk about the doctors in a second, but if I was in your position and this thing had caused me the harm it had caused you, you know, now you have obviously damage to your arm, damage to your body, I mean, you know, which is very serious. And then on top of that, it killed your dog. I think I'd start hating these things. I mean, what's kind of the emotional roller coaster that you're on? Because I'd want to start shooting at every one of these. Not that it would help, but I would want to start shooting at one of these balls of light, you know?
Yeah, totally. I'm totally with you. I backed away from the UFO field, not just because my back was broken, but because I was quite let down, to put it a nice way. It made me quite pessimistic about what I was and I have been doing for the previous 32 years. You know, I kind of realized then that a lot of my suspicions were correct, that they aren't all good. But then I started asking, you know, why? And the real part of the strangeness of the topic is, why do some UFOs let you film them, yet other ones seem to affect camera equipment? And I don't think that's just by accident, because they don't all do that, you know, when they come close. So it's not, I don't think it's an effect that, you know, of energy reacting with your camera that they're giving off due to, you know, whatever's powering their craft or their ship or whatever you want to call it. I think it's more of a directed thing. They're actually knowing what they're doing in turning off car engines or whatever the case is. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, who really knows? But for me, it's been an absolute roller coaster ride. I wasn't going to come back to ufology. I wanted to just sort of disappear. I had a bad prognosis. At one stage, they thought I had a cancer, and they cut out a precancerous tumor out of my stomach that they then thought was cancer, and it turned out it was some rare kind of stomach tumor. So all this stuff that's happened, and now I've got heart problems as well. So it's affected my heart. It's affected my arm. I mean, I've got really nasty scars all down my arm to, you know, remind me of the event for my life, you know. But the hardest part was, you know, with my little boy and losing him, and you know, I just kind of cursed the gods, so to speak, for a little while, and then I'm like, well, you know, it was confusing, very confusing for me. Confusing time, and I'm still confused about it. Why, you know, when they'll let me shoot them so many times, you know, film them, and then all of a sudden this one different UFO doesn't want me to, you know. And some people have said that I have mentioned it too, that it could be, you know, some type of government reverse technology kind of contraption. But the thing is that the movements it was making above the tree, the bobbing up and down and that sort of stuff, that's the same stuff I've seen, you know, multiple times during my life as a characteristic of the UFO. You know, they make small maneuvers up and down and left and right, and little swinging maneuvers sometimes, and like they're a leaf falling to the ground and then they'll just stop. Really bizarre maneuvers. But yeah, it's been going back to the subject about the physical issues. Harvard Medical School, they contacted me and they wanted me to be a part of a study that I'd been selected for, and somebody else had passed my details onto this research scholar, and it was from Harvard Medical School actually, in regards to doing an MRI. Apparently in people who see regular UFOs, there's a part of the brain that they've found which is lit up that's not lit up in other people's brains, or people who don't see UFOs. So I found that to be quite interesting. So I put my hand up for the study, and within that week, just everything went to hell after I agreed to be part of the study. Within the next 2 weeks, everything. So I had my emails were hacked, my website went down, I lost everything basically in a week and had to start scratch again. So 7 years worth of work just completely died. It was bizarre, like really weird timing, for all that sort of stuff to happen. But it happens with me a lot, all strange stuff. So it doesn't surprise me anymore. So
yeah, let me ask you. I think life will be difficult to deal with in your position, Damien. I really do. I think that I would have a hard time trusting people. I think I would have zero patience for anyone who, I don't want to say questions you, because that's not the right way to put it, but when you've gone through so much, through relationships, and you have all these videos of, and like I said in the first episode, if you're faking this, you need to go work for Hollywood, because I don't think Hollywood can pull off half the stuff you pull off. Do you have a hard time trusting people? I mean, do you have a hard time when someone says, "Hey, Damien, I want to do an interview," or "Hey, Damien, I want to go out with you"? Do you kind of have a something in the pit of your stomach saying, "I don't really want to deal with this. I don't want to go through this." I don't know what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, no, I get you. I've been like that since I was young, actually, since I was a kid, and I've always been. It's hard because when you're a kid and you see UFO and you ask people around you, what is that, or what was it that I saw, and like with me, with my mother, and she said, "Oh, it was an aeroplane," sort of thing. When you sort of start to see, the human way that humans see the phenomenon, and the stigma that's attached to it, and how you're not meant to talk. So growing up, like I would mention it to people. I'd mention it to the brothers who taught me at school, and they didn't like it. And so you've eventually learned to shut your mouth, because you don't want to, anger people or have people think you're crazy. And so you can get a bit distrusting of people, and you distrust yourself too, because if you're at like a party or something like that, and you want to talk about or let a friend know about this secret part of your life, you're always worried about, are they going to reject me as a friend if I tell them about the UFOs, or are they going to, so eventually, you do start pushing people away and stop going to parties and all that sort of stuff. And, it's just, but like the best thing that I've done for myself is going public, because for me, it's given me the strength to, and I was also looking for someone else out there like me. Like since I was a kid, I always had this sort of weirdly romantic notion that I'd find my other half, and she was just like me, and she'd filmed and seen UFOs and stuff. But the older I get, I kind of realized that, how rare it actually is. And that, there may not be someone else out there like that. So it is kind of a lonely situation, a lonely life, and all that kind of stuff. But I've devoted it to 33 years to researching it, and it's pretty much like, I mean, I know a lot of other topics, and I'm good at other topics and stuff like that, but UFOs just seem to me be my bread and butter, minus any money or anything. I don't make money out of it on purpose, but I just it's one of those things, this topic, I can't get away from it, I can't get away from the UFOs either, seemingly. So,
well,
not much I can do.
I want to ask you about that because, we in the United States will say it's a ball of light. I very few people will say it's a UFO. Although technically it is UFO, it's an unidentified flying object flying through the forest or flying through in the sky that people run into. I want to ask you: have you ever read some of the ancient texts, like what do they call them?
Vimana. Mahabharata.
In India. Or have you ever looked at this, like maybe you're not running into a UFO, maybe you're running into an entity? Because in a lot of ancient texts, it talks about these entities.
Like Merkabas.
Well, I'm not sure what that means, but like entities, they present themselves in the form of a light, like a ball of light. And I was kind of curious, have you ever thought maybe I'm running into an entity? Maybe it's not a UFO. I know it's kind of, I'm just curious on what.
No, there's, you're absolutely, you've got a very good point, because a lot of, societies, like older societies, used to, out here, just half an hour away, we have Kula National Park, and they have legends of a flying being in a ball of light that would cruise along the rainforest tops, and the women of the village would go up and watch him. They'd climb the trees, and one night they were abducted or taken up into the stars, and they became the Pleiades star system. So and that's the legend of the Pleiades star system for Aboriginals. So there you have a being, a god in a ball of light cruising above the trees that the people used to go up and climb the trees to see. So, I mean, that can't be really, confused for too much else. They call it a sky being, So, I mean, they're all around the world, those legends. So, I mean, there has to be something to it, the connections are just too much to be a coincidence, I believe. But with the Mahabharata, with even the Sumerian texts, and quite a few other ancient texts in the world go into the topic of them being beings themselves, and I believe that's a good possibility. You can't close the door to anything in this phenomenon, or you can't be closed-minded to certain points because they don't agree with your initial viewpoint. You've got to be open to everything because it's such a wide-ranging topic and it's so deep and mysterious. You can't just gloss over it or touch one part of it, really, to get a full understanding. You've got to really dip your foot in the water and get into everything, as much as you can, and be as well-rounded on the topic as possible. That's the idea, But it's a crazy one. It's a crazy topic, and it's in depth. And 32 years ago, if you had asked me, about the aliens, where are they? I would have just said, "Oh yeah, what are they? They come from Mars, and they're little green men." But now, the more you look into the topic, the stranger it actually does become. So, but it's, you can't go too far down the rabbit hole because it's hard to get back out once you do. So
yeah, it is. It makes me think of like in the Torah, when the high priest would have to go and do some sort of ritual sacrifice or whatever the Jews talked about. They would have to wear these special suits. I don't know if you've read that or not, but they had to wear they had to have certain jewels on there, and they had to wear these special suits to go in to perform these rituals. And I've always wondered if they wore that certain metal and stuff before they went in there to prevent them from getting radiation. That was the whole point of, and it's weird, you get into like Moses. He went in, talked to the burning bush. Everyone knows the story. He comes down, and then his face shone like the sun. It makes you wonder if there's like a form of like too much of the spirit world. And I know you say UFOs, but I'm just, we can exchange UFOs and spirit world, but I'm curious, before you actually engage with them, there's some sort of danger. There's some sort of, even in like UFOs, when UFO crashes, I've heard rumors through these people who claim to come forward, and they say don't touch the bodies because you'll get sick. Well, why do you get sick?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's very strange, isn't it? But it's similar to the case in Dyatlov Pass. With the Russian ski hikers that disappeared for a while. Then they were found, in grotesque kind of fashion, and like even the Russians themselves said that it was some sort of unknown force that hit them and messed their bodies up, sort of akin to being in a traffic accident. But I think there was 2 or 3 of them that had radiation all over their bodies, and so yeah, it's all over their clothing. So who really knows? It's one of those topics that you scratch your head about.
Yeah, I mean, and
it's so deep.
How do you go before a doctor? I mean, these doctors, anyone can look at it and go, well, Damien's faking it. And they can brush it off.
Yeah.
And go, well, he's full of crap. He's learned, some video.
He's learned about stuff, and he's watched a documentary and he's just repeating what he hears or something.
But then how do you explain the physical damages to your body? How do you explain going through and having just short of basically cancer and having your arm all deteriorated, and you're a healthy guy, for doctors to go, well, it's osteoporosis. Well, you know what? Osteoporosis does affect people, but not in their 40s.
Not at my age.
Not at your age. Yeah.
No,
and
that's what the doctor said. He said it was really rare. That in itself, but HO is like much, much rarer. So yeah.
What I don't get
really
is
strange.
how you're not on the front page of newspapers. I mean, how does a doctor look at you and go, well, what does he do for a living? I film UFOs. How do you have that conversation with doctors?
You can't, unfortunately, until it's fully accepted as a reality, I believe. And even then, there'll still be doctors and other people who will hold out, and they won't believe until they see it themselves. Even if the government does come out and say that they exist or whatever. But with doctors, especially, I'll tell you one story just quickly. I saw a doctor here. And this was like just after I'd been in the Sun Herald newspaper, and I had reporters see UFOs in the backyard here with me, and then they put us in the paper. And the following weekend, I'd had this really bad migraine, and so my father had taken me to the doctors at Dubbo. It's like an hour and a bit drive away, and I saw this doctor, and I described to him. I said, "Yeah, look, I've got a bad headache and a bad migraine. I've had it for a couple of days, and I just need. Can you help me?" And he said, "Oh, so what have you done, to get the headache, or how did it happen, or whatever?" And I said, "Well, I saw a ball of light, and basically a white ball of light that came up close in the backyard here, like a couple of days prior to the migraine." And I said, "Oh, that could be it." And he said, and he looked, the way he looked at me was like, well, he thought straight away, this guy's crazy. You could just tell the look in his eyes. So he turned around, typed on his computer, gave me a piece of paper after he printed it out saying, "I'll help you after you go and see these people." And I opened up the piece of paper, and it was for a mental hospital down the road, to go and see a mental hospital, because I mentioned about a ball of light. Yeah. So that's the attitude they have. In the city, it might be slightly different, but the doctors I saw in the city were the top of the line doctors in the North Shore, and they were like stumped by my arm. They couldn't work out what had caused the bones. And here I am going. I mentioned to him that I may work around radiation, and straight away he sort of seemed interested, and he asked, what type and what do you do? And I didn't answer what I did, but I said to him that it could be electromagnetic radiation. And he said that electromagnetic radiation straight away won't affect your arm that way. And I was like, oh, okay. So I left it at that, because I didn't want to then say, oh, it could be ionizing radiation, or, oh, it could be gamma radiation. You know what I mean? So I didn't want to push it and then have him think, okay, why are you being exposed to gamma radiation for, or why are you being exposed to ionizing radiation? I'd have to answer UFOs, because I can't say I work at a nuclear power plant or anything like that. So, but yeah, no, it's, and I mentioned that to him, and he sort of brushed the electromagnetic radiation off. So whatever this is, it leaves, it's had like a microwave radiation effect. And one of the weirdest parts of what happened to me was behind me in the office, just inside the door, was like a bunch of shelves, and on the shelves there was like DVDs and Blu-rays, discs, and all that sort of stuff, and movies and all that, and I think a few days later, because like after I got back from hospital, I had a broken back, I had some time to just lie down and watch some movies, so I grabbed a movie and opened it up, and sure enough, the movie at the top was melted inside the actual packaging of the disc without the packaging being affected in any way, shape or form. So you've got a DVD cover, it's got paper in it, it's got thin plastic, then it's got thicker plastic, and then you got your disc inside, right? But the outside was completely untouched, while multiple discs, and then I went through them all, and multiple discs from the top down, up down until about the bottom 5, were all melted in the same way. And it reminded me of my arm because it melted through my jacket. So I can't explain that apart from some type of possible, microwave kind of radiation, directed radiation, or I don't know what type of heat source could cause a burn on my arm through a jacket other than that. I mean, but yeah, this phenomenon, it's almost like magic. I mean, they can do all sorts of stuff. There's a story, with Colares, an island off Brazil, where there was people attacked years ago, and beams of light were sent down from balls of light in the sky, and they were zapping people. And it sounds like a crazy out there, like Hollywood kind of flying saucer movie, but it's a true story. And the Brazilian Air Force actually was sent in there to investigate it. And they said that they were investigating something else, but they actually called it Operation Prato, Prato, which is Operation Saucer. So they knew what they were doing. They were there filming, and apparently the UFOs would all come out of the jungle at all times of night and day and go and attack people. So they're attacking people through their roofs. So beams of light were actually penetrating roofs, and then without affecting the roof itself, and then hitting the person and causing radiation burns on them. And I think 3 or 4 people died as a direct result of what happened to them from these UFOs. So my case, and there's a few other cases out there, but my case is not that, not absolutely unique or anything, but it's still left the question open for me personally. Why did they do that? Because I've always had like what I thought was a good connection with them, because they come at my birthdays a lot. They 6 out of my last 9 birthdays have come either 20 minutes before midnight or 20 minutes after midnight, always on my birthday. So it's really strange, and I think I've had them about 13 birthdays. I've seen them during my life. But over the last, decade, it's gone pretty crazy with them. I don't know why, but yeah, it's pretty out there, the whole thing. Just talking about it's kind of, it's a weight off my chest, because I've kept this for about over a year. While I was recovering, I kept most of this to myself, what had happened, and because I didn't have an answer really to give anyone, and I still don't have 100% answer.
Yeah, it's interesting you bring up that case about Brazil. I do remember that case where they were, and the people were terrified. They were locking themselves in after dark.
Absolutely.
Terrified of these things. And it makes me think of like Travis Walton. I sat down and talked with him face to face, and we did an interview. Yeah. And I can tell you Travis isn't lying.
He's telling the truth for sure.
Yeah, on top of that, what's weird is I asked him about the light he got hit with. Everyone's seen the movie. Most people have seen the movie where he gets hit with that light. They're out there cutting wood and they're working late, and he gets hit with that light. What's fascinating is I asked Travis how he felt when he woke up, and he said he felt like he was dying. He was in the process of dying, and they were trying to save him. One thing that's hard to wrap my head around, because I've seen the balls of light and I know exactly what they're like when you run into them. But it's very different. You talk to Travis, and it's a big ship, and there's beings on the ship, and they're trying to help him. And everyone's heard of the Greys and the Draconians and all the different aliens, quote unquote aliens. And in your case, you're seeing these little balls of light that are flying around. And, you know, our Native Americans here in America will tell you to stay away from them, that they will harm you, they will kill you, they will lead you to your death. They have nothing good to say about them. I'm kind of curious, have you ever thought about, why don't I have an experience with like a Grey? Why don't I have an interaction with an alien as opposed to these weird balls of light?
Yeah, good question. Well, I could answer that two ways. I could say, look, you know, there's a chance that I have had an interaction through a dream. A lot of the people who are abducted, they have they wake up in their beds afterwards, usually. So this happened with me, and there was little beings walking around the perimeter of the ship, going past these porthole windows, and it was such a real dream that, you know, I was actually there. I could feel cold on my back, and I was stuck in this black, like, liquidy gel kind of glue stuff, and we couldn't move. But I had like a little rat's ponytail at the back at the time, so I could lift my head up just a bit. And there was 9 people in this room, 1 woman, and the rest were men, and we're all stuck in this circle, like all next to each other, going around the bottom part of a ship. It was bizarre. It was so real. But I woke up with marks on my legs, my left leg, like 2 spider veins. It's like a massive spider veins in 2 perfect circles. It was really bizarre. And then another time it was like a weird sexual dream, and this was just a few weeks after this first one, and this is just after I started seeing UFOs here 9 years ago in Dunedoo, after the second night I was here, when all these strange stuff started happening. And there was a woman on a bed, and she was naked, and she looked human, but she wasn't. She was really small. When I say small, maybe 5'5" or something. But she had really pointed ears, like, you know, in Lord of the Rings, you got the elves, and they got the pointed ears. Well, it was like that with her, and she had blonde hair, pointed ears, very cute face, you know, very pretty. But the thing was, the way she was lying, sort of sitting on the bed with her legs up on the bed and the legs sort of open, you know, naturally I had a look what was down there, and there was like a big rectangular opening. And I'm thinking, what is that? That's like I could see through whatever. It was like they were projecting a fake reality, and I could see through it. And I remember in the dream going, no, this is not right. What's going on here? This is seeing through it. And there was a look of confusion, even though I was only thinking this in the dream. There was a look of confusion on this elf's face. It was, she didn't know why I wasn't interested in her, or why. It was absolutely bizarre. And eventually, anyway, I'll cut it short, she ended up scurrying backwards into the darkness, and she was gone. And then I woke up, the same 2 marks on my left leg again. So I mean, if you look at it that way, there's a chance that that's happened, but I've always tried to push that aside and say, oh, look, I don't have any actual evidence of it. It was just a very lucid dream. But if you look at it in the subtext and the context of, you know, the UFO phenomenon and the abduction phenomenon in particular, you can see that there's a possibility that I was actually taken by something. But still, you know, there's a part of me that thinks that, you know, if you're a garbage man, or you're, you know, a carpenter, it's really bizarre.
I want to ask you about that. You know, with regard to, I know you grew up Catholic. I don't know what your religious beliefs are now, but I think if I was in your shoes, I would go, where the hell is God at? You know, why is he allowing this to go on? Does that ever go through your mind?
Yeah, I actually used to think God was the aliens. I used to ask the brothers, you know, is the light, is that God, you know? But they could never answer. But yeah, like I've always wondered, you know, why does God let this happen? Why does he let everything happen, all the evil on this earth and all that sort of stuff? But, you know, I did go to a Catholic school, and I grew up, I was, you know, trained as a, reading the Bible and all that sort of stuff. But as I grew older and sort of started seeing things with my own eyes, I kind of moved away a little bit from religion, and every now and then I'd still pray and whatnot, but just life circumstance, I just moved away from it a bit. But I've still got that connection, but at the same time, we're living in a world now of, atheism, agnosticism, religion's kind of going down the toilet all around the world, and we're in some pretty chaotic times at the moment. But I don't know. I can't blame a god or anything for what I've been through or seen, but, I did actually blame, I was angry with him for a while after it, to tell you the truth. I was a bit unhappy, because if he created them as well, like it says in the Bible, he's created everything in the universe, then why is he letting them attack his people, his creation? It doesn't make much sense, but, the phenomenon doesn't make much sense anyway. So, it's a bit out there.
And I appreciate you answering that. That'd be my first, I think I would be enraged with God. I would be like, why are you allowing this to happen? Why is this happening to me? And Australians are a lot like Americans in the same breath as far as our animals go. Our dogs. We Australians, I will say the Brits, Americans, Canadians, we look at our animals like our family, and if I was in a position to where I saw a ball of light and I had to put my dog down afterwards because of radiation or whatever, I'd be outraged. I'd be angry. I would be, I always said if a Sasquatch or a Yowie in your country ever killed my dog, I'd burn the forest down just to prove a point,
Yeah, totally. Yeah, you can't go wrong with the doggies. They're beautiful creatures. But I do miss my boy. But that's just what I mean. It just throws you for a six when something like this happens, because all your research goes out the door, and then you start focusing more on are these things bad? What's going on with them? Due to my own research, I've looked back through the years for other cases that are very similar, and I found a few that are quite similar. And then you've got the there's something going on with this world. It seems like there's something fighting over us. I know that sounds crazy, but due to my own experiences and my second sighting, watching a red ball getting chased around the skies, by a greeny yellow ball and a blue ball, and kind of it made me wonder then, why is it the red one getting chased around? Is it bad? Is it, is it getting attacked by the good guys, or is it, why are they doing that for? And a couple other times it happened in my life where I'd see same coloured UFO getting chased by similar coloured UFOs, and I've got it on film as well. I've got it in composite photographs, and so I know there's something strange happening out there. And I think it was 1561 in Nuremberg, they had a similar thing where flying spheres were cruising around the sky, and there was like cigar-shaped objects and delta-winged objects, and they did it in a woodcut at the time, which was kind of like
it's in a famous
newspaper,
famous painting.
Yeah, that's right. And then 6 years later, I think, or 7 years, in Basel, Switzerland, the same thing happened. And it was described that these balls of light would have beams of light shown at them, and then they'd fall to the ground and explode. And everything was quite detailed for the time, because it was witnessed by a lot of people. So when you have your own experiences, seeing these balls getting chased away by other balls, it's got to make you wonder, is there a war going on over us? What is actually happening? What are they? You look into the Bible part of it, and you look at the Nephilim. Are they fallen angels? Are they this? Are they that? It's I think most cultures know about them. I mean, I think we were much more knowledgeable about certain things, thousands of years ago, especially about the Earth, because we were more in tune with the Earth then. Now we just sit behind our TVs and our mobile phones and computers and everything, and I think we've never been further away from the Earth itself. And whereas the Aboriginal people, they spent most of their time wondering about Australia and seeing different things and always looking up at the sky, and hence their their detailed knowledge of everything around us and all that sort of stuff, because just due to observation, same as the Indians in America, the American Indians. So yeah, it's
Yeah, I want to ask you about that. I'm really curious. In your situation, I think it's hard to disprove you based on your evidence, based on the videos, and now you have this physical ailment that would be, unless you're working in a nuclear rocket,
nuclear plant or something.
Yeah, exactly. It would be so hard to prove anything else. I mean, it would be so hard to fake something like that. And I'm curious. Or go ahead, Damien.
Oh no, I was just going to say, and why would you want to fake something like that?
Why would you want to fake something like that?
Possibly kill yourself, and then how are you gonna get a rod of radiation anyway? Steal it from a nuclear power plant, or get it from some North Korean spy or something? How do you get even close to that kind of stuff? I don't know, but all I know is that the specialist, over 7 months, we went to multiple specialists, skin specialists, you name it. And all they could say, the closest they could come to the mark, my arm that melted, the closest they could come is they asked me if I'd been near some islands north of Darwin in Australia, some tropical islands. I'm like, no, I haven't. I'm in Dunedoo. I'm in Botham Hills at the time. And I said, no, I haven't. So, it's a bit crazy.
Let me ask you this real quick, Damien. I'm really curious on if someone were to ask you, what is really going on here? What's really going on with these lights? What's really going on with what's your kind of your knee-jerk reaction to say, here's what's going on? I know you don't know, but I'm just kind of curious on your opinion.
Oh, okay. What I do know is that they've been around for a long time. They've been around probably since before we've been here. I do know that this is not our planet either. I do know it was created possibly for us. And one of my hypotheses is that it's similar based on the zoo hypothesis, where, they're out there, but they don't want to contact us because of certain reasons. And so I think that would explain a lot of the secrecy around the UFOs, why they're very tricky, why they play with your equipment, why they do all sorts of stuff. But at the same time, some of them don't seem to care. They just zip through our skies with absolute impunity, and they don't care if they're filmed or whatever the case is. So to me, that screams that there's different races, or there's different beings coming from other dimensions, all sorts of, and possibly just like on human Earth, there's good and bad up in the universe.
Would you want to see another light? I mean, would it be in your? Would it suit you just as well just to never see one again in your life?
Yeah, I said that until I came up to Dunedoo to get away from them, and then as soon as I've come back up, they're back up here again. And my dad was telling me the other day, he's like, they've been gone for nearly like a decade, and then you come back and they're back again. I'm like, no, I want to get away from them, but I'll probably come to the worst place to get away from them. But yeah, I don't look, if I see them, I see them. I don't. I'm not fussed about them anymore. They don't excite me anymore like they used to. Like I used to see one and then not be able to sleep all night and the next day as well. And I'd be up all excited and on the computer and putting the SD card in and running it through Movie Maker and slowing it down and having fun. Now it's just routine. I've lost, I'd not say my passion for it, but it's severely dented my enthusiasm, I should say, for the subject. Yeah.
You've been there and done that a million times. I get it completely.
Yeah, you kind of get over it after a while, when you're around people who haven't seen it that much, you get the excitement from them. They're all excited and happy and giddy and all that sort of stuff. And me, you can hear it in my videos, like everyone around me is screaming and carrying on who's seeing them. And I'm the one who's going, oh, geez, just quiet, it's enough, stop screaming and carrying on. It's just a UFO. But I can understand why other people, that's kind of as well, like going back to what we were speaking about earlier at the start about the loneliness factor, Not many people see them, and so you can't really relate to most people because they haven't had and they can't relate to you because they haven't had the experiences you've had. And when you have experiences that are that out there, it completely shapes, completely shapes your life in ways that most people will never understand. Completely shapes everything you are as a human, your thoughts on reality, your thoughts about other humans, your thoughts about where we are, why we're here. Everything just changes, and it becomes a big, open, scary book then, scarier than what, we're taught at schools, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, and you've had a hell of a journey, and I really appreciate you taking the time to come back. And I really wanted to ask you last time. I didn't want to keep you for like a 2.5 hour show, but I was really curious about, you being harmed by the ball of light. And I think it's a good warning for people out there. Because, as humans, we're curious. We want to walk up. We want to touch it. We want, we're like little kids. And I think your encounter, your experience has taught people maybe don't go too close. It's something bizarre. It goes on. People run into it, but don't get too close. And I wanted to ask you, Damien, about your documentaries. What do you have coming up?
Coming up, I've got Haunted Skies, which is goes into certain links between different paranormal phenomenon, such as mostly the ghost phenomenon, poltergeist and all that, and the UFO phenomenon. So that's Haunted Skies. And then we've got Fractured Realities 2 coming up very soon, in the next few weeks. And that's continues from part 1, goes into the subject a bit darker, like what we've been talking about today. Touches on that, shows evidence, shows the burns, and shows the reports and all that sort of stuff to back up, back up my story. And so like that, they're the two main ones right now. But I've got a crew coming up tomorrow, which would be really interesting to film a documentary. They're coming to Dunedoo, and I'm working on, I think, another 3 as well from around the world. So just sending out footage, stuff like that to them. Pretty much this year, hopefully I'll have about 6 or 7 coming out. So that should be pretty busy.
Are they going to be on Amazon, Damien?
Amazon, I think Netflix, Discovery Channel is buying
Very
one
cool.
up.
Yeah.
So they'll be getting around. Yeah.
Yeah, and I really recommend that people go out and check out your work. Like I said, the first time I watched your videos, it was on Amazon, and I was shocked by what you were presenting as evidence. I was completely shocked. And then hearing your story and hearing what happened to you, and my heart goes out to you because I can look past the whole, I see UFOs, I see balls of light, I can see the human side of it, and I don't know that I would want to switch places with you, man.
Hey, I get you, but hey, I'll happily switch places with you. That's fine.
No,
you might not want to, but I'll do it.
Well, and it's better you're in the position than I am because you're a better speaker than I am. But everything.
I don't know about that.
Well, everything that you present, and I was just blown away by your life and your whole life story, and I can't thank you enough for coming back on the show, man.
I can't thank you enough for having me back. It's been an absolute honor and a privilege. Thank you. And thank you to your audience again.